Unconventional, unapologetic, and unnaturally bronzed. Donald Trump is far from a traditional US president, and his supporters say that's exactly why he's the right man for the job. But there's no doubt his unorthodox approach to the economy, diplomacy, and even the Constitution is proving deeply divisive. Is this political style just a one-term flight of fancy, or will it reshape US politics? Stay with us for today's debate on Counterpoints with me, Melinda Nusafora. Fewer than 100 days into his second term, Donald Trump has thrown the rulebook right out the White House window. He's upended global trade, made enemies of allies, smashed government jobs, and lined the White House with his billionaire buddies. His strongman approach has resonated with Americans who felt left behind or left out by the political elite.
There's never been a movement like MAGA, like America First, call it whatever you want to call it. This is the greatest movement in the history of politics.
And it's also been one of the busiest. Trump is exercising his power through executive orders. He's signed more than 110 in his first 2 months, more than any other president. And he wants to keep going, hinting there are ways to change the Constitution so he can serve a third term.
In just 71 days, the President of the United States has inflicted so much harm on Americans' safety, financial stability, the core foundations of our democracy. These are not normal times in America. And they should not be treated as such.
Love him or hate him, President Trump has changed the US political landscape. Here on Counterpoints, we'll ask, has the president delivered on his promises to American voters? Is he governing for the people or for the billionaires? And is America now stronger on the world stage? Stay with us. Joining us on the panel is Pastor Mark Burns, President Trump's spiritual advisor and the co-founder of the Now TV network, and Cenk, the host and co-founder of the independent American news organization, The Young Turks. Gentlemen, welcome to Counterpoints. Well, it's been less than 2 months since President Trump took office, and he came in promising peace in Ukraine, a crackdown on illegal immigration to boost the economy and to make America wealthy again. Big promises. Illegal migration is down, but the markets have crashed after the tariff announcement, and we're yet to get a peace agreement in Ukraine or in Gaza. So, Mark, let me start with you. What do you make of the president's record so far?
Well, I think the president is on track to do exactly what he ran on, and again, to be, a two-term, very successful president. The tariffs that have been imposed onto the world is specifically designed to create and regenerate U.S. manufacturing. Let's look at the auto parts and the vehicles that 25%, less than 25% of the vehicles that are purchased here in America are made in America. You have way more made in China signs or tags throughout America, but very few made in the U.S. or made in America. And so it is really a national security threat for America to not be industrial like we used to be. We are the world's greatest spenders, or buyers, and the world needs the economy of America. So yes, the president made it very clear this tariff is going to cause a dip in our pocketbooks for a little bit. But in the long run, America is going to come out on top. The immigration, as you stated, is at an all-time low. That it also is a national security threat. President Trump ran on this, and he has, again, proven his point that he has been very tough on the immigration, removing M13 and all of the violent criminals that have infiltrated our nation is a top priority for President Trump's administration. And he's proven it to be true. In regards to Ukraine and Russia and Gaza, of course, the president has, he's the president that's been giving javelins to Ukraine. I just came back from Ukraine. My whole opinion about Ukraine has shifted significantly. And maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. But
we are absolutely going to. I will definitely.
The president is very upset about Russia. He's upset with Russia. He's upset with Putin, and he's threatened to introduce secondary tariffs on Russian oil, which will ultimately crush Russian economy. So the president is moving in the direction to bring peace in the Ukraine and other parts of the world.
Okay, Cenk, what do you think? Do you think he is on track to deliver on the promises he made to American voters?
Yeah, no, he's been a bit of a disaster so far. Yes, better at the border, credit where credit is due. Now, of course, even on that issue, he gratuitously shipped some innocent people to a hellhole in El Salvador, and now his lawyers for the government are saying, oh, we don't know how to get them back. And they're saying they're innocent, but they're also foreign terrorists, which makes no sense. And now Trump is saying, oh, yeah, I might deport American citizens to El Salvador. No, don't do that. So he's like Trump does this all the time. He takes a position that is actually fairly popular, close up the border. And he does it. Sometimes he even does a decent job with it, as he did in the beginning here. And then he finds a way to bungle it because he's a serial bungler. What are you talking about arresting American citizens and sending them to a torture jail in El Salvador? That just doesn't make any sense. And kidnapping students off the streets and bringing them to a jail cell in Louisiana and maybe deporting them because they criticized Israel, absolutely nuts, totally unconstitutional, against freedom of speech. And yes, the Constitution applies to everybody in America, even non-citizens. So those folks didn't do anything wrong. They certainly didn't do anything wrong to America, but I know Israel, of course, runs America and runs Trump and ran Biden. Maybe we can come back to that as well. Mm-hmm. So on the tariffs, I'm not against tariffs. I'm a left-wing populist. I think some tariffs that are directed strategically at certain industries like the auto industry can work. But now, if you're pro-tariffs, God help you, because these tariffs have been so badly bungled, nobody will ever want to do tariffs again. He nuked the whole world at the same time, not at all targeted, causing financial calamity for no apparent reason. And which one is it, by the way? Are we going to keep the tariffs forever and it's going to rebuild the manufacturing base over 10 years? Or is this just a negotiation ploy to reduce tariffs or get other concessions from trading partners? Because it can't be both. Mm-hmm. The negotiation ploy is short term, and we're going to take them away. We're going to rebuild manufacturing is long term, and we're not taking them away. And he's not been forced to answer that very basic question, and partly because he doesn't know what he's doing. But I can go on and on of all the things he's done wrong.
All right, but I want to throw it over.
Well, let me jump in just real quick.
Go ahead.
Concerning the students. Yeah, concerning the deportation of the students. And listen, the reality of it is, I'm pro-Israel, but I'm also pro-Palestine. I'm pro-peace. I'm pro-human life. I'm pro-everybody deserve a chance to live. I'm anti-Hamas. Okay, and that's the challenge that you're seeing with some of these protesters who are pro-Palestinian. Now, I will, in the next couple of days in Michigan, we'll be speaking to a group of pro-Palestinian supporters. And I hope to be able to go to the Gaza and to be able to have conversations to try to bring peace in that region. But let me just say this, what the Palestinian protesters need to do, they need to make sure that they are not pro-Hamas. When you're holding up signs that are saying we are pro-Hamas, my message is that Hamas is not Palestine, the Palestinians. The Palestinians are not Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization that should be wiped off the face of the planet, supported by Iran. And they're using human shields from the Gaza to destroy Israel. I'm extremely pro-Israel, but I'm also pro-human life. And I think that when you're having students who are protesting with the pro-Palestinian protesters who are holding up signs that are saying, we are Hamas. They do not need to be in America. They need to have their green cards revoked, and they need to be deported out of this country. We will not support people who are non-American citizens who are also supporting terrorist organizations who are killing more Muslims than anybody else. Matter of fact,
see you
Hamas
shaking your
wants
head
to kill
a
you.
little earlier in that response there, Cenk. What's your take?
Yeah, so as usual, they start with good concepts and then mangle it. So if you're pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, pro-peace, I'm with you, brother. You're anti-Hamas, I'm with you, brother. Okay? But number one, we have an absolute freedom of speech here in America. So you can say those things, and that is in the Constitution, and the Supreme Court, hold on, has applied it to non-citizens as well as citizens. Now, I don't happen to agree with that speech, but freedom of speech isn't for speech that you agree with. It's for unpopular speech. But that's not even important in this case, because the people they've snatched up weren't pro-Hamas at all, didn't say anything pro-Hamas. In fact, Mahmoud Halil went on national TV and spoke out against anti-Semitism. Öztürk only wrote an op-ed. She didn't even go to the protest. She wrote an op-ed saying that there should be an economic boycott of Israel. None of that is pro-Hamas. They're 100% making it up, and that's the problem with going outside of due process. When you ignore the courts, you don't ever present your evidence. So if you had evidence linking them to Hamas, great, present it, and let's have a conversation.
Well, the evidence,
a good debate about it.
Yeah, the evidence is a sign. They got a clear sign that says we are Hamas. There's a sign that says you don't have to debate that.
Totally wrong.
You don't have to debate that. You don't have to.
You're wrong.
It's just like Black Lives Matter.
You're wrong on the facts. You're wrong on the facts.
It's like Black Lives Matter.
Black
Lives Matter was powerful. I was for Black Lives Matters in the beginning until they start talking about killing pigs. Now, what Black Lives Matter failed to do was they failed to say, hey, we're not with those people. We should denounce those people who are talking about killing cops, killing pigs. The moment they did that, they lost the support of millions of supporters. And as you can see, Black Lives Matter turned to be a sham.
Okay, but wait a minute, brother.
It's the same thing goes with the Palestinians. Hold on, let me finish.
But no, let's apply the same standard. Let's be fair. Let's apply the same standard. Has everybody on the pro-Israel side condemned the slaughter of 50,000 Palestinians, the slaughter of 15,000 Palestinian children? Has everyone called Israel the terrorist state that they obviously are?
Well,
or
do
does Palestinian lives not matter as much as
what media is for. That's what media is for. And that's what people like me is for. That's what the whole purpose of media. That's why we have these conversations. Because media like you paint one side of the picture. You need more people like me who's willing to go to both sides and conversate. People like you who just paint one side of the picture and not both sides of the picture, and be willing to have people to come on there and talk about both sides of the picture. I'm willing to talk about the Palestinians that's been murdered, killed, just like Ukraine. It's not a popular topic within Republican circles, but I'm willing to admit where I was wrong. And I'm willing to admit that yes, people are dying in Ukraine at the hands of Russian atrocities. And yes,
we are going to come to Israel, Gaza. We're going to come to peace negotiations in a little while, but I'm going to move this on. I'm going to move our conversation on because I want to talk also about tariffs. You've both said that you're not anti-tariff, so let's talk about Trump's record on that. We've seen over recent days share prices crashing, starting to come back again, still a lot of global uncertainty, but many Trump supporters are insisting that this won't impact normal, everyday working class people without a hefty share portfolio. Cenk, do you agree with this?
There's no chance that's true. So here's what's going to happen. If you said to the American people, guys, we need to rebuild manufacturing base here on semiconductors, on cars, and these targeted areas where we need to make sure that we're producing materials in America, especially if it touches national security, and you could maybe even put pharmaceuticals in that category. I think a lot of people would say, yeah, I'm willing to bear the short-term costs and the pain of it, but they understand that means car prices are going to go up a little bit. That means maybe chip prices are going to go up a little bit, but hey, we're going to build a base so it's worth the pain, right? But instead, here what we have is global indiscriminate tariffs on all the industries and on almost all countries. So in this case, is there going to be pain? There's going to be massive pain. The stock market going down is a big deal, and it creates other issues for pensions, for jobs, etc. But the bigger deal is not the stock market. It's the prices that are about to skyrocket. You can't put 104% tariff on China and not have your prices skyrocket when so much of our goods today, whether we like it or not, are made in China and Vietnam and Europe and Canada and Mexico, etc. So it is an economic certainty that prices will go up significantly. And when that phase hits, which hasn't hit yet, when that hits, Trump is going to lose all popularity. His poll numbers will dive because the reason he got elected, the number two reason was immigration. We talked about that and gave him some credit. Number one reason was inflation. So he's about to make inflation way, way worse than it was under Biden, and people are going to hate that. That's why this global strategy was an enormous error.
Pastor Burns, was it an enormous error?
Well, listen, the president is creating jobs, American jobs, okay? 220,000 jobs was created in March. Manufacturers coming back to the United States of America. $1.3 trillion of investment has flooding into America from all over the world. We're expecting another 144,000 being added here in this month because manufacturers are coming back to America. It's baffling to me. Yes, the prices may go up a little bit for a little while, but that's not going to stay that way forever. This is a long-term strategy, and Biden and Democrats and people like my counterpart who has been using and praising, the Democrats who's been killing our economy as putting us in a slave mentality to the rest of the world. We are an industrial powerhouse, and that is the only way for us to really defeat our real enemy, which is China and Russia, who wants to wipe America off the face of the planet, who wants to devaluate the American dollar through BRICS, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and President Trump is putting a stop to it. And on the way for that to happen is for America to once again become the industrial powerhouse that has made America great and getting us to where we are producing more, which creating more jobs, which is also encouraging people to buy America, to buy American, made in the U.S. That's the whole goal. Now, yes, our prices are going to go up a little bit. Everybody knows this, but they're not going to stay that way because competition is going to draw those prices down. When we have more and more American-made products by Americans, for Americans, competition will drive those prices down. That has already been proven before, and it's going to be proven again. That's the strategy. But it's baffling. What we want to keep being the number one buyers of foreign products. We want to keep allowing Mexico to send in cars and products, which represents 38% of their total GDP. We want to let Canada keep sending in products to America at low tariffs, and that represents 28 of their total GDP? No, we don't. We need to put a stop to that, and President Trump is doing just that, which creates American manufacturing jobs. I'm in the South. Cotton, tobacco used to be the products that ran our countries and ran our nation. But we removed ourselves from that by becoming great spenders, depending on foreign products, cheap foreign products like in China, and it has destroyed our ability to be the powerhouse that we once was. That's what President Trump sees happening. If we don't put a stop to it, it is national security if we do not become the great manufacturing powerhouse that we once was.
Cenk, that seems like a pretty logical argument. How can you say that competition is a bad thing?
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that, and it's a straw man. So let's break it down one by one. First of all, he says, I praise the Democrats. That's okay that you don't know my reputation, but there isn't anybody on the left that criticizes the Democratic Party more than I do. Okay, so you got the wrong guy on that one. So number two, no problem. So number two, look, the idea that we created manufacturing jobs overnight is ridiculous. We've been adding jobs. Biden had bad inflation, but he had good unemployment numbers. Trump had good unemployment numbers in the first time around. He had good unemployment numbers heading into this administration. So that's what you're seeing right now. But the tariffs have been around for under a week. They didn't magically create manufacturing jobs overnight. So I do want to create some of those manufacturing jobs here in America. Absolutely, as I've now said 3 times. But it does depend on the industries. Some things are just made cheaper outside the country, and we don't need to recreate that. We have new technologies, and look, I'm worried about AI, but it also has upsides. Certainly, we've cornered the market on technology in Silicon Valley. We've done an amazing job of creating new industries. So that's the direction we need to go. But But Mark, none of these things that we want in terms of rebuilding the base are going to happen overnight. You'd have to stick with them for 10 years for all this. It takes 10 years to build a plan. When you talk about capitalism, look, let's look at, I'm a business owner. I run TYT Network. And so I know if you put a 30% tariff, which is a tax on something, and you've got a 15%, or if you're lucky, 20% profit margin, well, that's going to take your entire profit margin and put you into a loss. So they cannot do that. They've got to pass it on to the consumers. It doesn't magically go away overnight through competition. It just doesn't. So some of those prices will be here to stay. And maybe it's worth that price in specific industries. But when you do it globally, what's going to happen is you're actually going to unite the world against us. Those BRICS that you're talking about, and China and European Union, they're having conversations right now. Do we unite economically against America? Because if we all retaliate at the same time, we'll crash their stock market, as is happening now. We'll have enormous prices on, and Trump will backpedal. He will, and we know this. So, Mark, last question for you is, do you want them to stay for 10 years and rebuild manufacturing, or do you want it to be a negotiation ploy to reduce some of the tariffs? You can't have it both ways. So which one are you in favor of, and which one do you think Trump's going to do?
Well, first of all, let me just say this. I just realized who you was, so please forgive me. I most definitely know who TYT is, so I apologize. You guys got to have me on more, okay? And not talk about me, because you do that a lot in a negative light. But the reality of it is this. I think the president is using for both negotiating, because again, you start seeing in other countries where they are now starting to offer 0% tariffs, because again, America buying from them we're just a massive conglomerate client. We are the largest spender for most of these countries. They would not be able to survive if they did not have access to the American market. And again, that's what the reciprocal tariffs were for, so that we just have a fair deal for all sides. If you're going to charge us a 30% tariff, which you have many countries have been doing, like India and certain things, and then we're going to now start charging you a 30% tariff. So the goal of it is to get these countries to recognize the error of their ways, and to realize that if you want to gain access to the powerful American dollar and the powerful American market, you're going to have to lower your tariffs and make it fair for American products to also sell into your country. And that's what's happening. And so it's a negotiating tool, but also I think long term, the president wants to empower the American economy through the American manufacturing sector. Again, $1.3 trillion have already been invested. Yes, it doesn't happen overnight. You are absolutely correct. It doesn't happen overnight, but it is the long-term strategy that is already starting to have an effect. The fact that the deregulations of businesses that are happening, the Democrats and Biden administration made it more difficult for business to be here in America. Now businesses are leaving the other parts of the world, and they're coming back to America to build and grow and to promote their products right here in America. So I think it works both ways. It is a strategy for negotiations. At the same time, there's a long-term strategy to empower the manufacturing sector of America.
All right, I want to turn now to governance. President Trump secured a convincing mandate during the election. We can't argue with that. He secured the popular vote and all 7 swing states. He promised to deliver real change for real American people. His supporters are now using some left-wing terminology, targeting corporate overreach and rallying against the so-called elites coming from his billionaires. And yet he surrounds himself with these billionaires and self-promoters. So, Cenk, I want to ask you first. I think I can guess your answer. Is he governing for real working-class Americans, or just the billionaires who bankrolled his campaign?
Yeah, here context is also really important. I actually believe that there are a lot of Trump voters, a lot of independents, and yes, even big portions of MAGA that are actual populists. And so now I get a lot of heat from my friends on the left for saying that. They say, no, they're all a cult. They'll never break with Trump. They're not real populists. I think they're wrong. I think the voters are actually populist. And that is why Trump has gone in that direction rhetorically. He accurately saw that that's where the country was heading, both on the right and the left and the middle. And so that was a smart strategy for him to win a second time. Now, is he an actual populist? No. Not even close. So when pushed to the test, he never passes. So, hey, are you going to put some populists in your cabinet? No, not really. I'm going to stuff him with billionaires and a guy who worked for George Soros and people who worked at Goldman Sachs, etc. He says he doesn't like poor middle class people in his cabinet. He only likes rich people. Well, I mean, you're telling us I mean, if that's not a tell, I don't know what is. I'd love to play poker against this guy. So he said he'd cut defense. Elon Musk said it. Donald Trump Jr. said it. Hegseth said it. All the right-wing media loved the idea of cutting defense. I proposed that. They agreed. And now we found out today he's not going to cut. He's going to add $150 billion to the Pentagon that's already loaded up with pork, waste, fraud, and abuse. So he's letting his populist base down on that. He's going to do a $5.5 trillion tax cut that is going to mainly go to corporations and to incredibly wealthy folks. He's going to let his base down on that. He's a fake populist. He was smart to go with populism, but he never meant it.
Pastor Burns, is the president governing for real Americans, or is he just pandering to the billionaires that funded his campaign?
Well, I think the evangelical right, the Christian right, is really excited on the president's strong stance on biological men competing in female sports, and his.
But that's not really answering the question as to whether or not he is supporting working class Americans.
Well, absolutely. That's the whole purpose of the tariffs. The whole purpose is to, I mean, again, the left screw the working class, the manufacturing jobs, the middle class jobs that have been deported to other parts of the world. Absolutely, he's fighting for the middle class. That's the whole purpose of the tariffs. That's the whole purpose of using this tariff war. And yes, we may suffer a little bit, but we want to make sure that long term we can go to work 9 to 5 or good manufacturing jobs that has built the back of America, where Black people and white people and young people and men and women and all different races can go to work and have a hard day's work, honest day's work, and pay their bills, pay their houses, pay their mortgages, send their kids off to college. These are the things that have been regulated to illegal immigrants. So many immigrants have stolen these jobs, and now we're seeing more and more illegal immigrants that are now leaving. You're seeing these jobs are filling back up again with good, hard-working Americans, despite the color of their skin. And so this is exactly what President Trump is doing. He wants, when the tide rises, all of the boats rise together. And that's what he's doing with the tariffs. And we're starting to see early effects of it right now. Again, the reality of it is the president is fighting for the middle class. The tariffs is for the working class.
Okay, I want to ask you this then, Pastor. Elon Musk has exercised a lot of influence in the early days of this administration, but there are conflicting reports that he could soon be stepping back, being forced to step back from his role. Pastor, do you think his influence has been a good thing or a bad thing for the administration and America?
Well, I think it's been a good thing in regards to identifying the inefficiencies that has taken place in government spending. I mean, you're just seeing it come out left and right of these rackets that was happening, these funneling of billions of American taxpayer dollars that is going to ridiculous programs that was never designed to prosper the American people. The waste that has taken place. And so that aspect of it, I think, has been very powerful, and Americans are appreciating it. Naturally, again, I think some people don't like Elon Musk because, again, he's, from South Africa, and, he's, not an elected, he's a billionaire. But again, government should be for the people, and government should be ran efficiently so that all the trillions of dollars that are being saved by Elon and Doge can now go to other programs like the elderly, like those who can't work. That's what government is supposed to be there for, to help those that really do need the help. And that's what I'm pushing for in the Trump administration, to make sure that those funds are turned towards those who are less fortunate, not lazy, less fortunate.
You're off camera there, Cenk, but I can see you on my monitor shaking your head.
Yeah. So look, I wish that Pastor Burns was right, that they would redirect, that they would have huge savings and they would redirect it towards the poor and the needy. That's a very Christian of him to say that, and I appreciate that, Pastor. So now, unfortunately, that's not the direction it's going. So if you take what Elon Musk has said at face value, which a lot of folks have proven is not really the case in terms of all the money that they've theoretically saved. But I'm going to give it to them and say, all right, they say that they saved $130 billion at Doge. Let's say that it is. Okay, $5.5 trillion in tax cuts for the rich. So now we're going to need another $5.4 trillion because we're redistributing the wealth to the top. So that makes no sense. So we were supposed to at least save $100 billion a year from the Pentagon, and they had all agreed to that, and Musk had agreed to that. And now we're adding $150 billion to the Pentagon every single year. And Trump is bragging about how it got to $1 trillion budget. So, well, there goes that money. So there's no savings here at all to give to the needy, to give to the average American. In fact, Trump last time added more to the deficit than any other U.S. president. And he did it in 4 years. He added over $8 trillion. Why? Giant tax cuts for corporations took their tax rate from 35 down to 21. Now he wants to bring it down to 15%. So we're going to have another giant tax cut for corporations, and the average American is going to have to pay for it. And so this is not populism. It is the exact opposite. And finally, on his donors, my God, does he deliver for them. And so did Biden, and so does the entire Democratic and Republican parties, and we're all sick of it. But look at what Trump's doing. Elon, you get domestic policy through Doge. You cut anything you like. By the way, you can keep the subsidies to your own companies, which is outrageous. And on foreign policy, Miriam Adelson, you take foreign policy, you stuff it with Marco Rubio and Elise Stefanik, and although thank God she's out now, Mike Huckabee, et cetera, all these neocons. And now Israel gets whatever they want. And now Trump is talking about how we're going to rebuild Gaza and we're going to control and own Gaza. That's just ludicrous talk. I'm tired of paying for Israel's wars. Why is Israel first and America second? So I don't agree. And if you don't know, the Adelson family alone, deeply right-wing, pro-Israel, pro-Likud, pro-Netanyahu, pro-genocide family, has given Trump over $337 million in campaign contributions. In America, activist judges on the Supreme Court basically legalized bribery, and Trump is just stuffing all those bribes into his pockets and just giving away domestic and foreign policy to his donors.
All right, we're going to come to foreign policy in just a moment, but I have a very quick question before we move on. Mark, Donald Trump has joked, in inverted commas, about running for a third term. Do you think he's joking?
Well, of course he's joking. I mean, listen, the president sworn to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, and so he's absolutely joking. It is against the Constitution for
he
that.
He did say there are ways. He said we're exploring ways. There are ways.
Well,
he
let
said
me
there
just
are
say
methods.
this. It's the same concept belief system that we in the right believe that former President Barack Obama was actually running the third term for former President Joe Biden. I mean, it's just talk. It's getting people talking about it. The president's really not serious about running for a third term, using or twisting the laws. It gets us talking about it. He's been proven to do that. Again, that's part of the art of the deal. To strike hard and to say sometimes ridiculous comments to get people talking about one thing when in reality he's working out deals for another. So it's just marketing 101. The president is most definitely, I mean, we're talking about it right now, and we all know that it is, constitutionally impossible for anyone to run for a third term. So,
Cenk,
but I think
is
the
this
president's
just
doing
marketing
exactly what
101, or is
wanting
he
to do.
serious?
No, he's 100% serious. That's why he wanted to stay in office after he lost in 2020. And by the way, Mark, look,
That's Trump brain syndrome.
No. Okay, look, two things there. Look, I hope Pastor Burns is right, and I challenge him that if Trump tries to run for a third term, that he join me in saying that is unconstitutional, ridiculous, and Trump should be deeply condemned for it, okay, for trying to go outside the Constitution.
I would absolutely.
Okay, great. I love that, and I appreciate that you're on the record on it. Okay, I love that. Okay, great. So now when Trump was asked, hey, are you joking? Because this sounds ridiculous. He said, no, I'm definitely not joking. And we've thought of different methods to do it, maybe run as J.D. Vance's VP and then have J.D. Vance step down or run or become the Speaker of the House and all this nonsense, just garbage. And because he loves power and he doesn't really believe in democracy or the Constitution. Last time he lost, he said, maybe we should terminate the Constitution. So that's why I voted against the guy. I can't stand the establishment, and I appreciated that at least rhetorically he took on the establishment, but you can't vote for a guy who doesn't believe in the Constitution. So, but it doesn't matter. If Pastor Burns and the right wing is on our side and they say it's deeply unconstitutional and we'll never tolerate it, great, wonderful. I'll take yes for an answer.
Okay, all right. Look, we are going to run out of time very shortly, so I'm going to move us on to foreign policy. Donald Trump came into this office in the White House as a self-described peacemaker and said he would end Russia and Ukraine war on day one and that there would be peace between Israel and the Palestinians in Gaza. Cenk, let me ask you, why do you think the Trump administration isn't going as hard on Israel as it is going on Ukraine?
That's easy. Washington, D.C. is occupied territory. So Israel totally controls both the Democratic and Republican parties, and it's not complicated why, and it's not a conspiracy. So in America, you could give infinite political contributions. So the number one donor in this election cycle was AIPAC. That's a lobby in favor of Israel. Number one donor to Donald Trump is the Adelson family. Number one donor to Joe Biden throughout his career, AIPAC. $5 million to Kamala Harris, AIPAC. And it goes on and on. So, and it's not just specific to Israel, by the way. Anybody can buy American politicians, and the drug companies buy them even more than Israel does. That's why we can't even negotiate drug prices in America. It's insane. It's total. The bribery and corruption in America is unprecedented. I don't know that any country has ever been this open to corruption. So Israel has logically bought the U.S. government, and so they put in, $500 million in an election cycle, and they'll get back $20 billion. The blank check that Biden and Kamala Harris sent them last time for the slaughterhouse in Gaza. And now Trump is saying, hey, I'll do one better. I will go in and own and control Gaza for Israel. I'll wipe away the Palestinians and ethnically cleanse them to other countries. And American troops will risk their lives doing that, apparently. And then afterwards, we'll just he says we'll own it. Of course not. That's ridiculous. The reality is we'll hand it back to Israel, and we'll have done all of their dirty work and paid for all of their expenses and done their genocide for them. And the American people didn't sign up for that. And most especially Trump voters didn't sign up for that. They said America first, not America second, not America 18th, not asterisks, but obviously after Israel because they get to buy our government. So no, it's outrageous. People will hate it, and they already do hate it. And I think Israel's going to be in for a rude awakening soon in America because both the left and the right can't stand that they control our government anymore.
Pastor, what do you think? Do you think Israel's actions in the Holy Land are just? Do you think that there is a case to be answered for here, that they're not acting in a just way?
Well, I think it's very sad truth that the LGBT community and Beyonce and all of the movie stars and the R&B stars that Kamala Harris and the Biden team paid to endorse. I think there's a lot of buy-in going along in America on their side. But let me just say this: Israel is God's people. We believe that. Those of us in the Christian right believe that. We believe that Israel is God's people. I, however, do agree that the senseless killing by Hamas is the culprit. Hamas are the thugs that needs to be wiped off the face of the planet, and the peaceful people of Palestine, they need to be protected. And there has to be a peaceful solution for those people. Again, I'm leaving on tomorrow, heading to Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan, to just speak specifically to pro-Palestinian communities and to gain a better understanding. I think when you try to sit down and talk to people and try to understand where they're coming from, you won't be so easily moved by the fake news media that comes from the left and the right. And both sides are culprits. My prayer is that there be enough Americans that will rise up that are not left or right, but they're just simply a human being righteousness and will take those stance. We're just so partisan in America. I stand with Israel. I stand with their right to have the God land that God has given them throughout the scripture. And for me, it is beyond politics. It is a biblical canon into which I and billions of people live by in this world. And so, again, I support Israel, but I also support the innocent free people of Palestine.
Okay, well, what about the innocent
who are in
people
these
of
crossfires? Who are in these
Ukraine?
crossfires, and again, who are being used as human shields by Hamas? Again, Hamas is the enemy. Ukraine. I just got back from Ukraine. I had no idea that it was going to blow up as big as it did with my presence
all right.
in
So
Ukraine.
in Ukraine, do you think the Trump administration's strategy there, he said he would have peace on day one, is his strategy for a peace deal working?
Well, I think that, again, you got two sides of the deal. Let me just say this much. I am praying for the peaceful people of Ukraine. My attitude towards Ukraine has shifted. I am strongly MAGA. I'm very strong MAGA. I'm very strong America First, and I'm very strong President Trump supporter and advisor where he needs me, or where he seeks me. But I also know that there are innocent people who have been executed and murdered. 700 religious institutions have been intentionally destroyed by the hands of the Russians. 20,000 children have been kidnapped, and now deported back to Russia. They're systematically killing, hands tied behind their back, shooting people in the back of the head. At the beginning of the invasion, of the Russian aggression invasion, they were asked to put white bandanas on their arms, and that white bandana was designed to let the Russian soldiers know that these are civilians and children. But yet some of these soldiers took those white bandanas and tied the hands behind the back, using those same white bandanas, shooting people in the back of the head, old people. Just yesterday, or 2 days yesterday, 2 days ago, 9 children killed. These are not military strategic strong points. These are civilians that have been intentionally targeted by the Russian aggression. And the President Trump has made it very clear. Remember, President Trump sent javelins. Joe Biden sent blankets and pillows. President Trump sent javelins to support Ukraine. And now we're seeing, since my visit, for the first time since 2022, the Russian envoy is visiting D.C. to start negotiations, because President Trump's strong stance says, if Putin do not come back to the table, I will issue secondary tariffs on Russian oil, and that is designed to cripple the economy of Russia. And I will go after the countries that are purchasing Russian oil. And so the president means business. This conflict is going to come to an end. I was on the ground, and I made it very clear. My heart has changed about Ukraine. I was a staunch supporter, a proponent of supporting Israel. But now when you see the people, and I was not paid to go there. I'm not a lobbyist. I was invited by the rabbi of Ukraine, Rabbi Uzman, and my friend Yakov Flishkin. And I was invited to a religious gathering of leaders of Ukraine. And it was there what I discovered the atrocities that the Russians have and is doing. And so they don't want American money. They need American weapons. I've been very clear. 1,000 tanks. Get them 1,000 tanks. Get them anti-aircraft weapons. Get them 300 tanks where they can defend their home. But most important, let me say this and I'm going to stop. Most importantly, the Ukraine people would rather not have weapons. They would rather have peace. So peace is what President Trump is doing. Not so much about weapons, getting them peace, getting them boys off the front lines and having the proper security that they need to maintain the sovereignty of the nation of Ukraine.
What do you think, Cenk? Can the Americans have it both ways? Can they send javelins and say we want peace?
Yeah, I think they can. So I largely agree with Pastor Burns on Ukraine. And there's plenty of agreement on Israel, too, but there's one giant disagreement I want to come back to. On Ukraine, look, what Trump did with Zelensky in the Oval Office was not helpful. What he did in wanting to extract mineral rights, which, by the way, is for lithium, which goes in Tesla batteries and other convenient help for his donor class. So I don't agree with that stuff. But him trying to get to peace, I do agree with. And so we've spent a lot of money in Ukraine. On the other hand, Russia invaded Ukraine, and my heart goes to the Ukrainian people, and I want them to succeed here. But we can create some sort of leverage and pressure on the Russians by sending some weapons. The question is a good debate as to how much weapons we should send over there. But once you create that leverage, you should not use it for perpetual war. You should use it to force them back to the peace table and get a peace deal. And Trump has actually been consistent in pressuring Putin, and that threat of tariffs on oil is a good one. So it's a mixed bag, some good things and some bad things in Ukraine from Trump. Now on Israel, look, I want Israel to be a safe haven for Jews across the world. I want two states. I want a free and independent Palestine and a free and independent Israel. But this talk of they're the God's people, that's what starts this mess in the first place. First of all, anybody can do that. Oh, I just talked to God. He says it's Turkish land, so give it back to the Ottoman Empire. Okay, here, we're even. But in reality, even if you don't go to farcical things, the Muslims there genuinely believe it's also Holy Land, okay? So then we get into a holy war, and I don't want war. I want holy peace. And so I'm not moved at all by I spoke to God. Did you? Did you? And he says that it's theirs, because both sides say that, and that's what's creating the problem in the first place.
And I'm sorry that you don't use
God,
the word of God
the
as
other
your
God
canon.
says the other
That's your
thing.
beliefs. There's but one true living God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, through his son, Yeshua, Jesus, the Messiah.
Okay,
that's
yeah,
your opinion. This is my
He
opinion.
chose them.
And my
They're
opinion
superior
says
to
that,
all of
that is
us.
that is God's law, that is God's land, that is God's people. And America, the majority of America believes that. And that's why we are supporting.
So we've given him $300 billion.
Because you make something.
How much do you want to give him, Pastor Burns?
The reality about
we've
Ukraine
given him $300 billion.
The reality
not enough
about
for
Ukraine
God?
is this, because just like if you're going to raise your voice, I can raise my voice too. I'm not sure. Don't excuse my pastor title as a weak man. If you want to raise your voice, we can raise the voice, and we can do this all day long. But hopefully, we can have an intelligent conversation. Now, back to Ukraine. The reality of it is this: if you are on the ground, I'm not sure if you've been to Ukraine. I'm not sure if you've had time where there are drones flying over your head. But I was in Ukraine, and I'm going back to Ukraine, and I can tell you the soldiers on the ground there, they would rather have peace than weapons. Thank God for the javelins that President Trump is sending. And I pray to God, thank God that his incoming nominee for the chairman, Joint Chief, is agreeing with me and says that we need to continue to arm Ukraine. But the Ukrainians, they want peace. My prayer is that President Trump will continue to do what he's doing to bring peace to Ukraine. Not send weapons, but peace in any way possible so that people can die. But if we got to send weapons, we will send weapons. But again, there are Russians that are dying. And they are the aggressors. I want to be clear. They are the aggressors. And 300 rapes have taken place not too long ago. 300 women raped in Ukraine, right? And so these are the things that we need to have these conversations. And the same goes with Israel and Palestine. Again, I am, and I can't speak for everybody else, I am a diehard Trump supporter. I am a diehard constitutionalist, and I'm not going to apologize for that. But I will, however, say, as a man of God, you have to look at the innocent people that is dying on both sides, Palestine and Israel. And yes, I support Israel, but also want to support the free, innocent people and call out the real enemy, and that's Hamas. Hamas is the real enemy. They are the terrorist organization, and they are the ones that we're not talking about more. We should be talking about them. Palestine died more at the hands of Hamas than anybody else.
One quick right of reply to you, Cenk, and then we're going to have to wrap it up.
Yeah. So listen, we agree on Ukraine, so I don't know why you're yelling about that. On Israel, where we...
Well, I'm yelling about that because I want to get my point across, but also don't appreciate you for what you're saying is sacrilege. And I understand that you may be an atheist.
I can also talk louder, Pastor Burns.
When you talk about your God, it's offensive to me.
You want to talk louder, Pastor Burns?
It's very offensive.
Let me say something. Okay.
And for you,
offensive for what? You're the one talking over me for no reason. Okay, so all right,
what you said was very offensive.
Will you let
every
me
Christian
answer
around the world?
Goddamn question.
Every believer around the world. What you said was very offensive.
Gentlemen, let's have one right of reply to Cenk, and then we're going to wrap up the debate.
Have me on your show, and we'll do the same thing. But what you said was very offensive to every Christian and believer and person of faith around the world.
Cenk, if you could finish your statement, and then we'll wrap up. Thanks.
Okay, so listen, I'm so tired of Muslims and Jews and Christians all telling me that they spoke to their God And they have the one true God.
Anybody talk about spoke to no God? It's in His Word. It's in the black and white Word.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that you don't believe that. I'm sorry that you don't have any guts in your own. I feel sorry for you.
Sake, shut
I'm sad for you, sir.
I was
that you really don't have no faith. It is not somebody talking to some mysterious God. It's in the black and white of the Scriptures, Genesis through Revelation. And Israel belongs to God. It is through the seed of Israel that Yeshua was born. I'm sorry you don't believe that. That's not my fault. And God forbid you. But I'm not going to let you sit here and insult God.
I'm not interested in your voodoo. I'm not interested in it.
I'm not going to let you insult the Yeshua, Jesus, the Messiah, in my faith. Or all the Jews who believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You can keep your nonsense mess. You're the reason why we got so many blasted of grown men trying to be women in this world. Because we have no God, no structure.
Let's not descend into another debate. We could have this religious debate all day. But you know what? I'm going to call it there because we've had some excellent agreement with some robust discussions. Gentlemen, let's have some respect for each other. It has been a pleasure having you both on Counterpoints.
My last point is that Pastor Burns is not pro-life. And none of those evangelical Christians are pro-life. 15,000 Palestinian babies and children massacred.
Conception. And I'm so sad
not one word of complaint.
I feel sorry for you.
Israel massacred them.
And the Bible says all knees shall bow.
15,000 Palestinian children.
That Jesus is Lord. And you, sir, one day we'll figure it out.
Giant hypocrites. Never believe the
You are the hypocrite.
Enormous hypocrite.
Go raise up a little boy and make him a girl. That's what you want to do, sir.
All right, we are not going to get into a trans debate because that is off topic and that is a completely different discussion for another. It is for today's debate, Pastor Burns. We are going to have to leave it there because we certainly don't have time to launch into a trans debate. Pastor Burns, I'm going to interrupt you there because we're out of time and we are not going to open a debate on trans rights because that's going to be in another show entirely. I appreciate both of you. Your robust views, your firm beliefs are very appreciated here on Counterpoints. Pastor Mark Burns and Cenk Uygur, thank you both for your very robust discussion. And thanks to you at home for tuning in for that very robust Counterpoints debate with me, Melinda Nusafora. You can catch all our episodes at Al Arabia's English YouTube channel and follow us on X and TikTok. We'll see you next time.